Hello, beautiful people, starseeds, twin flames, divine masculine, divine feminine, however you identify, this is the right place for you if you are on your twin flame journey, and that's sometimes known as your twin soul, your divine counterpart, one of you being the divine masculine and divine feminine. Perhaps you're on the journey to figuring that one out, or you're very aware of your particular energy and how it complements and is the yin to your twin flames yang, or vice versa. So I have these cards in front of us from the Rumi Oracle, and this is your pick a card reading for the full moon in Leo. And I have posted this in a few places, so you may already know what your choice is. If you don't and you want to pause this video to take a moment, feel free, and I'm going to start revealing the cards very shortly, and I will put timestamps as well for each card. So we have Strawberry Quartz for pile 1, beautiful strawberry quartz. This came from Mount Shasta, not mined there, but that's where I got it from. And then Labradorite, this came from Sedona, Arizona. And Opalite, also from Sedona, Arizona, more recently. And I also have roses from my backyard that are just starting to dry out just slightly, which makes them smell even more amazing because I picked them earlier. I feel so blessed for Valentine's Day. My rose bush is full of roses. So they're going to be moved so that you can see what card is coming up for you depending on your choice. Or if you had like a first and a second choice, then that is all good too. So that's really the introduction that's needed, I believe, for these cards. So we can go ahead and get started. And I am going to post a blog of this reveal as well, so I will include that in the description if you want to check that out and read it. So we're gonna go with number 1 first. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. Ooh, from nothing to everything. Such a beautiful card. I love this style of artwork. This is similar to how I like to do artwork, in a way, of the kind of like movement in art and the colors. So number 16 as well, and this really speaks to sweet beginnings, kind of endings and beginnings. I think of the number 16, and although maybe it's not as related to numerology, I really think of 16th birthdays. You know, that's always a big one for one reason or another. I'm kind of laughing at myself because I had a little moment there of my own 16th birthday. Might be a story for another time. So this card is really about that. It's about the nothing that you're coming from isn't really nothing. It's the ending of something, and it's the beginning of something that you've been investing into. It's this foundation. It's like this motion finally happens, you know, this mechanism that you've been investing into, wondering if there's anything going on here. Yes, so from nothing to everything. I am going to read a little bit of this card's description too, because the card details for all of these cards are very specific. So for this particular deck, I do like to reference the guidebook. And I will have info on this deck below in case you don't have it and you're interested in it. It's really lovely to have as well. So the Rumi poem that's connected with this card is very short. It says, "Oh, my friend, if you are longing to be written on, become a blank page." So that really does speak to this energy of from nothing to everything, right? And a little bit of what's going on here from the book. There are moments on the path of love that seem to focus on letting go of identities, of knowledge and certainty, of opinion, and even attempts at control. So this theme of letting go of control is allowing that mechanism to click into place that you've really been investing into, and like, you know, how's this gonna work? Well, where you've really truly been putting the love is where it's gonna work. But then releasing that control is what's actually going to allow that to happen. And you can't control, maybe you're looking at this card thinking it's going to be one thing. It may be that thing, or it might be something else. So the best thing you can do is really be open here to just receiving and the feeling of what it means to go from nothing to everything, because it really does start with the feeling. You could have much less than you even did at one time in a way, or in a past life you could have, you know, more than you had in a past life, but you could feel empty inside, or you could have less and feel very fulfilled and very full of energy. So this idea of going from nothing to everything is really, again, the beginning of something new. It's your platform to be able to expand from that place, because you have more energy now. You have more stability, you have more balance, and you have more faith in the process. Like it's not even faith, it's like you actually understand how the process works because it's working for you in some way that it hasn't quite clicked into place before. And so when something works for you, it's a lot easier to share it with others as well, and to just be that light, basically, that maybe if you're on, like for instance, if you are very serious about your twin flame journey and you are doing the work, perhaps you're doing what is called the mirror exercise. And if you don't know what it is, that is in the links below. You might suddenly attract people, you know, in your life that you didn't know were on their twin flame journey, and suddenly they start talking about having a twin flame, and you're like, oh, cool, you know, I have something I can share about what to do with that. And you see if the person is open to receiving that. So that's the kind of thing where you're attracting people who might be ready for what it is that you have to offer because it's worked for you. Could be something that's very specific to your life purpose as well. So whatever it is that you're doing that's clicking into place, that's finally working for you. But this, given that it's so close to Valentine's Day, it's full moon in Leo, and this is a more romantic deck, and purpose and love go hand in hand. So it feels like it's something that is a balance of both. There's some purpose in there, and there's some of your twin flame journey, your twin flame coming closer to you in some way. Now this could be energetic, you could say in the 5D, and either way it is energetic, whether it's happening physically yet in real time or not. Again, it does require trust and faith, and I don't just say that to lead you on a wild goose chase. It really does require you to do the work without necessarily getting all of the results right away. So this is about you, you know, receiving some results in some way in your life that's going to encourage you to keep moving forward and building momentum. And again, part of that building that momentum then is going to be sharing it with others. So this oracle comes with guidance for you. Now I'm reading from the oracle book again. You are being asked to let go, to receive, to become empty, to be filled. This may mean letting go of attachment to a lover so you can receive genuine love. The human experience of this paradox is that you may feel you are giving up hope that your fantasy is dying. It may be very painful and bring you much grief, but all that is dying is your attachment and opinion about how it must be. This needs to happen so you can stop dreaming and start living. So this doesn't, I also want to highlight, this doesn't necessarily mean the person that you believe is your twin flame all of a sudden isn't your twin flame anymore, or your life purpose suddenly is completely different than you thought it was. There's always a turning point in your journey of something. Like, you know, you walk a path, like you walk a beautiful path in nature, and it's not just straight usually. There's turns so that you can see everything and so that it's built into your journey, into the surrounding. And the same thing goes with your twin flame journey. And so you don't always know what's around the corner, but if you let go of attachment, then you can just be present with right now. And that's what really matters the most. That's how you're going to receive the most love and be able to love yourself the most. So it's not about the person or the whatever you're calling in being necessarily different from what you expect, but somehow it's going to be different from your fantasy, because your fantasy is in some way based on a delusion, an illusion. A bit of an aside, if you want to look at your astrology, you could look, for instance, perhaps at where Neptune is in your birth chart for some info on that. You could also look at your 7th house and what's going on there. So I do astrology readings if you would like help with that, but you can also DIY, do it yourself, if you know where to look. So I'm going to move on to the second card. This feels complete unless we need to revisit this for any reason. Feel free to leave comments below, or if you have any questions, leave them below as well. So this is Labradorite, number 2. I like spinning it around. So we're going to see what is under here. Ooh, and it's upside down, so it feels like just an extra emphasis on the basic message to me with that upside down. Commitment, number 31. And this is about, like, again, it seems to me that I'm looking at numbers today from how you pass through life in a way, and life events. And 30, 31, this is usually after your first Saturn return, right? And you've learned some lessons, and you're also now mature in a certain way. You've moved into your 30s. There's no going back to whatever happened in your 20s. And so there's a deeper sense of commitment here. There's a deeper sense of peace, of ascension. This looks, you know, there's something about the quality of this and the paint strokes and everything and how they start to come together. They're a little bit blotchy, like a little bit blurry. What's the impressionistic is what the word I'm looking for. It's a bit impressionistic. And it really speaks to, if you take a step back, sometimes it's a little easier to commit and see what it is that you are committing to. And when you look at it up close, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong just because you can't see all of the fine details. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily commit to whatever it is that is your next step. And your true love, it does actually require a lot of commitment. Sometimes you don't realize how badly you might want it, or just how like ingrained, like you're just designed to be with your twin flame. So maybe you're someone who can do your journey in a certain kind of a way where you just do your thing and you attract them, your person, your twin flame person, into your life as you go. And you might be someone who's just really like deeply, oh, like I, you know, need that person. Like I don't care about anything else. And I want you to know that it's just okay how you feel. Like it's okay to just feel however you feel right now. And that might change, you know, and you might go back and forth about it. And well, that's life. And then it's also your particular journey and what you particularly are designed to focus on, to care about, and again, what is in your purpose. But this is about you committing deeply, more deeply to your ascension and whatever that's pointing you toward at this time. And I know like I started a group and there was a lot of excitement around the free meetups. And then as soon as I want to do group coaching, there's not as much excitement about that yet. And I think that that does speak to a commitment block, because it's not, I personally don't feel that it's necessarily about the finances, although it really triggers people sometimes to the idea of being charged for certain things. And hey, I get triggered too. I mean, I do understand, but this is I can't sustain doing what I'm doing. If I could, if I didn't need to be paid, if that's the kind of world we lived in, then maybe things would be different. But that's not how they are, and that's not realistic at this time. And it is worth paying for, and there's something about that energy exchange that is deeper commitment that might be the actual reason that you don't want to do it. And this could speak directly to you for investing in your twin flame journey, but could also speak to something like it's a reflection of some big choice that you can, where you can go deeper with commitment. So it might be showing up in other areas for you as well, where it's just pointing you to deeper commitment, like, oh, I want to move soon, so I don't want to buy this and that, even though it would make my life so much better, in my house. Those kinds of thoughts can be thoughts of lack, but they can also hold you back sometimes from excelling. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't need all the things, right? Like, if you wait until you have every last thing in front of you to do something, you might be having a perfectionist block. But there's two sides to that coin. And sometimes if you're a perfectionist, you can also have the opposite side of the same block happening in other areas because you're off balance. So one area you're a perfectionist, and another area you're not giving yourself what you need to be able to have a so-called perfect enough foundation to be able to take it to the next level. Because that's actual perfection, is just having a sense of wholeness with where you're at right now. Not having everything perfect. Because the truth is, you're not ascended right now. You're still on your ascension journey. And it's just about stepping more deeply into that ascension for yourself. And it could be the smallest little thing sometimes, but the small little choices you make really attune you to being able to make those bigger choices when those things hit your reality, and to just having a stable, good feeling foundation. It's like there is no upset big or small, and there's also no miracle that's big or small. So really just paying attention to what is coming up for you for this card, and committing, even if it's committing to just buying the sweater that you really wanted and then you do it, okay, and again, it's not just about finances either, or about buying something. Of course, it could be about committing to doing something for yourself, or doing something for a pet or a loved one. And it's not about the outward action commitment, it's about the inner commitment, because sometimes that commitment can change, and that can also be a problem, is when you make a commitment and then you get focused and attached. And this goes in case you happen to sort of pick both cards. I know some people were picking more than one, or just if you were resonating with a certain part of this card. Well, this card was really about releasing attachment, and this is kind of the other side of that, commitment, right? And when you release attachment, you can then commit. And you can see this motion almost of these two cards kind of goes together. You can't get rid of this little area here, but you could see how, it does that. So that's nice. And even, oh, even down here, it does the same thing. Look at that. Goes from one card to the other. This is really speaking to you taking your next step. Again, going back to the last card, with faith, but with also a groundedness. And that requires you then, commitment does require also some action to solidify it at some point. Usually, it's an inner commitment, but then your reality changes. And as your reality changes, you're dancing with your outer reality. So you're doing things, you're taking actions. And so it's about that dance. And that means that the thing that you commit to, if it has a deeper meaning and feeling, like I'm going to water my plant every day at 5 p.m. because then I know it will be watered, and that's how much, and I know how much water I'm supposed to give it, and I keep forgetting, so I'm going to set it on my calendar and I'm going to do it. Well, for some reason, that's working out for a while, and then suddenly you have something to do at 5 p.m. What are you going to do? Probably not freak out that your commitment is ruined. You're probably just going to change the time that you water the plant. And that's a very basic example of going with the flow and not being overly committed to the outward thing happening at a certain way or doing it at a certain time. And that's, again, undoing any kind of perfectionism block that you have around commitment and what that looks like. And this is also going to help you expand, because sometimes you're all in with your life purpose being this one profession, and that's it. And you needed to go all in. But then it changes. And what are you going to do when there's something deeper revealed in your heart to you? Are you going to keep going with the old commitment and the old career? Are you going to implement change in your reality so that you can go with what it's clear that your heart desires? Because when you do that, fear is going to naturally arise. It's new, it's change, it's different, it's not as stable sometimes. And this is the same thing for your twin flame journey, and it can have to do with if you or your twin flame is with someone else or just doing something else besides completely putting the energy required to harmonize your union together, but just putting something else in front of that. So it's about not doing that and about committing to love and what's actually in your heart at this time, and not getting caught in the things themselves, the commitments to the outer, doing something outer, not committing to something outside of you, committing to God first, essentially, the divine spirit source, whatever works for you to call the higher power, our creator. And that really does feel complete for commitment. So we're ready then to move on to the last card, which is kind of falling off the screen here a little bit. So let's move these over. The last card is Opalite. And let's see what it is. Ooh, Dance of the Divine Feminine. I love this card. It always feels like it's giving me permission to do me, to like be me in a like really surrendered way. So that's what I get from this card. If you are the divine masculine, you might have a different feeling about this card, a different reading of what this means for you. And when you're holding space for the dance of the divine feminine, you get to dance as the divine masculine too. And as the divine feminine, when you're doing your thing, then you're really making space for your divine masculine to be closer to you. You're not pushing them away by truly romancing yourself and loving yourself. There's a difference between doing that from a truly loving place and doing that from a selfish place that is closed off, like selfish in like with the negative connotation. And sometimes we need to have boundaries, especially at first, if we're not used to loving ourselves in a certain way. And then those boundaries need to sometimes evolve. And if you don't evolve, then what you're doing can become selfish in a way that's detrimental to your journey. Not detrimental forever, hopefully. Detrimental sounds like a very serious word, and it is. But of course, anything that you're doing incorrectly can be corrected if you put in the effort. So it's okay. We all make mistakes, and we all are either too selfish or not selfish enough, so to speak, sometimes. And it is about finding that sweet spot, finding where your mastery is, because as you ascend and you're a part of greater consciousness, then there is that sense of selflessness that can truly expand, but it's from a state of love, and you have to love yourself in order to be one with that state of love, to harmonize and attune with that vibration that is in you, and your union is within you. That's how you're designed. So as you're doing the dance of you in your energy, then your twin flame can do their dance. And I feel called to also say that this can also attract unwanted energy sometimes, whether it's people hitting on you or just something else, like just people, could be anyone actually just seeming to want to take your energy if you perceive it that way, especially if you're a sensitive person like me and very, feeling all those feelings. You could call it clairsentient. Maybe you have another clair psychic kind of ability. And that is just an opportunity for you to be more yourself, not for you to be less of yourself. And that's a lesson that we all must learn, is not to collapse in those moments, but to shine your light. And that shining your light can look a variety of different ways. It can look like a big boundary. It can look like crossing your arms or not. But there's a difference in the energy between collapsing and expanding. And it's not that you need to necessarily always be open and expanding your heart chakra. Sometimes it does need to close and sort of, you could say collapse, but the way I'm talking about collapse here is more like you're feeling taken from, and so you're allowing yourself to be taken from energetically, because that's the reality that you're having an upset with somewhere within you, and so it's just pointing you to it. So the best thing you can do in that instance is love yourself, and one of the most effective ways to do that is with the mirror exercise. I mentioned it once before in this video, and it's essential for your twin flame journey to learn the steps, because your twin flame is going to for sure trigger you, and this is the answer to resolving that, and it is the answer to your ascension and to harmonizing your union because it points self-love to the places that you really need it the most. Self-love is amazing, and you don't always need to just do the mirror exercise to love yourself, of course. But it's often those places where we wouldn't otherwise love ourselves that we need to love ourselves. And this exercise allows you to have an easy way to access that part of yourself that would otherwise be very difficult to find, pinpoint, and access, where you're experiencing a state of separation and you can bring it back to oneness. And then that is that dance. Like, have you ever seen a really amazing dancer and there's this sense of oneness, of wholeness, of something, some kind of beauty and love that they're just expressing, and it feels really really divine, basically. It feels really divine. And so that's you. This is for you to do, for you to find a way to find the time, the space, the energy to enjoy yourself and your own energy, and to like pay homage to that energy, to the one who created you, to divine spirit, by enjoying yourself and inviting the divine more deeply into that place where you're experiencing bliss, because that's union, and that is cultivating that union between you and your twin flame as well. So I didn't talk about the descriptions for the last two cards. I'm going to read a little bit of it. It feels pretty complete, but since I did it for the first card, let's go ahead and balance that out. So first we're going to go back to commitment. And this poem is pretty short, so I'm going to read it as well. The awakened heart is like a lantern. Keep it sheltered from the turbulence of the winds of desire. And this does bring an extra layer of meaning to this card, where when you commit to your deeper desires, sometimes you need to then get clear on what are the lesser desires? What are the fantasies? What are the wants that don't actually align with your deeper desire? For instance, you're on your twin flame journey. Well, you probably want the right person for you, your divine ultimate lover. But if you were to turn that into a lesser want, and I've seen people do this, be like, well, this person's kind of like my twin flame. They're like, maybe they're maybe definitely actually not my twin flame, but they're really nice. Why do I need to be with my twin flame? And they go off and they do that. And sometimes they come back on the twin flame path. Eventually they will, whether it's this life or another. But yeah, that's not a fun thing to experience, but I have compassion and I could understand how that could happen in a way. It's hard. I mean, I'm not going to try to wrap my mind around it, okay? But the point is that you do have to let go of, other so-called love interests if you're committed to your twin flame, especially if you really know that the person's not your twin flame. Sometimes you're truly not sure. This happens to people. They're getting clear, or they thought they were clear, and then they're not. And so there's a big difference between that kind of exploration of getting clear within you and doing something that is feeding a lesser want, or if you want to call it a lesser desire, a fantasy, a delusion. That's going to take you away from the commitment that is actually going to bring you the true happiness. And yeah, happiness is already within you. It doesn't need to be brought to you. But if you want to look at it like that, that's fine. So then let's move on to number 42. Dance of the Divine Feminine. This poem's a little longer, so I'm going to read it. If a tree could move from one place to another, it would not suffer the pain of the saw or the oppressive wounds. If the sun and the moon stood still like the rocks, they could not offer brilliance. How bitter the taste of water would be if the river stopped its flow, remaining still like seawater. When the seawater rises to become a cloud, it loses its bitterness and pours the rain of sweetness. I have given you only a few examples. You can figure out the rest. Break away from the self and enter the kingdom of love. Beautiful poem, and it really speaks to then whether you're the divine masculine or the divine feminine. Watching this, how this card pertains to your journey and taking advantage of your humanness, of being designed in the likeness of your creator in that very specific way. I like this idea, like, you're not a tree. Although trees are really beautiful and very wise, amazing plant creatures, or whatever you would like to call them, it's not the same thing going on as being a person. And you are a person, and you're designed to be with your twin flame. And you have your God-given abilities for a reason. And so doing that dance, having that flow, is really going to be a beautiful thing to experience. But you have to give yourself permission to experience it. And this could be a good time then, if you were attracted to this card, to take stock of where you might be putting yourself, entrapping yourself, and just choosing to move through the lesson and knowing that you do have the freedom to move through this and to even do it with grace, with beauty. You know, it's a dance. And lastly, if you want, you could look at where Saturn is in your chart or where it's transiting, and that could be a clue if you are feeling held back in any way, restricted, what you might be moving through. And Saturn is not a bad thing, not a bad planet. It's actually, as you move through the lesson, it's bringing you a great deal of satisfaction and groundedness and wisdom. And the best thing you can do is embrace your lessons that you're moving through and dance with them, rather than try to resist them or bypass them, because then they actually really do become a part of your dance, like this beautiful part of your life, and not something that you need to fear anymore. And this is the hero's journey. That's a part of you becoming the hero of your twin flame journey as well. That feels complete for this reading. That was really wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the full moon in Leo. It's a really good time to get in touch with your childlike spirit. Maybe get in touch with your neighborhood, your, like, the feeling of community, or just walking around your neighborhood and what you enjoy about it. It takes you back to those early phases of your life of development, where you're really excited about the bigger world and community, and everything seems really exciting and has an extra kind of maybe shininess to it in a way when you're having those moments outside. And so whatever the weather is like, it's just about the feeling. And this can also be enhanced by doing something creative for yourself. So creativity can also look a lot of different ways. Of course, drawing and painting and singing and cooking Even reorganizing, like if you're decorating or gardening, could also be ways. So pay attention to something that your soul is really desiring to do and give that to yourself. And also just enjoy the full moon. Like if the sky is clear and you get to look up at it, it's really beautiful, and it's a really easy way to take a moment to meditate and romance yourself and to feel just connected with being right where you are on planet Earth, looking up at the moon. So with that being said, have a wonderful rest of your February full moon phase, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching, for subscribing, and liking this video, and all the best to you on your twin flame journey. You can check out everything below in the links if you would like more info. All right, I will see you again soon.